The episode begins with beautiful scenery of beautiful mountains and a lot of natural beauty all around. It was a mountainous area with a lake as well. The lake was shimmering beautifully, and there was also a wooden platform near the clear lake where a pair of cute shoes stepped on. Here, an unnatural sight is witnessed. A pretty girl, wearing a pretty frock, is seen giving her marriage proposal to a knight who is also very handsome. But sadly, this proposal was declined by this knight kindly. This saddened the pretty girl, but she once again insisted on getting married to the knight, even after getting rejected. It was hilarious to see her persuade the knight into marrying her, but he still declined. Next, a group of monsters are seen attacking the knight, who fights them off bravely, along with his companion Swain, who is another handsome knight and fights off the demons bravely. But with the fierce attacks from the monsters, Ruzhin, the knight, fell down finally. But seeing this, Akko, his admirer, healed him a lot more than needed, which caused the monsters to now attack Akko. Helplessly, she tried to defend herself, but soon, Ruzhin intervened and saved her. These were scary monsters, and all of them were having a tough time fighting off these monsters. This was when their master joined in on the fight, and with one strike defeated the enemy. But due to all of this, the mighty knight, Ruzhin, had fallen. Akko then revived him and hugged him. But actually all of this was happening inside a game, which was being played by Nishimura. Next day at school, he proudly announced to his friends that Nishimura had finally found a wife. Through all the conversation, it is known that Nishimura was an anime enthusiast and was very open as an otaku. While all of this was happening, one of his classmates, Sagawa, who didn't like him that much, walked in on them and started to call him disgusting for his hobbies. His friends started to defend him in a backhanded way. Suddenly, their homeroom teacher came to announce that they now had to go to the assembly hall. While they were walking through the hallway, his friends were discussing how Sagawa was really popular among the guys, and suddenly, another girl with really long hair bumped into Nishimura, and before he could say anything, the girl ran away without even looking at him. Next, as they walked into the assembly room, their president Gashoin welcomed them and proceeded with the assembly. On reaching home, Nishimura logged into his game, The Legendary Age, and started playing it once again. Basically, it was an online game, which was partially free and cost money for upgrading. Now, once again, the other members of their team were busy talking about how Ruzhin's and Akko's wedding went, while Ruzhin was mercilessly being attacked by the monsters, as if no one was concerned about his well-being. Next, at the gathering hall, Ruzhin was explaining to his team that he wasn't okay and it was mostly because of Akko's silly mistakes. All of this brought up a bit of argument between Ruzhin and Swain. On the other hand, their master was someone who used to waste his money on buying the costly stuff in the game. Actually, they had been playing this game for a year, and they had all been through a lot, and in this game, Ruzhin was Akko's husband. Eventually, he gave in to Akko's continuous proposals. Amidst all of this, Swain admits that someone has confessed their love to him, which made Ruzhin a bit jealous. Akko had a bit of a panic episode due to her hatred towards normies, which soon calmed down. Then, Akko revealed that Ruzhin had tried to get married in the game before, but unfortunately, it didn't work out. Actually, he had proposed to a player, Nekoheim, who actually confessed to being a guy and a cross-dresser, which broke his heart and made him really hesitant towards game marriages. After receiving this info, all of his teammates burst into an ugly laughter, which annoyed the hell out of Ruzhin. Ruzhin was so heartbroken from the shock that he decided to play solo for a year. Later, Akko said that she was a girl, but Ruzhin didn't pay much attention to it, as he had learned how to distinguish between the real world and the online world. This was when their master suggested that they hold up a real-life meeting for the first time. The next day, Ruzhin had arrived at their meeting spot and was waiting for his teammates to come. He sure was a bit nervous before meeting them, when suddenly, a familiar voice called him, and a cute shy girl with long hair was standing there behind him. To his surprise, this was actually his online wife, Akko. Akko was really excited. And this was when Sagawa, who was Nishimura's classmate, appeared. Both of them were shocked to see each other. Another girl, who was their school president actually, appeared as well. She was actually their guild master, and she instantly recognized all of them. Swain was actually Sagawa. As they went to the cafe, Akko was pretty obsessed with Ruzhin and kept being too clingy with him, as if her dream was finally true. Next, all of them introduced each other formally and also by their game names. This was when Sagawa realized that her username Swain actually meant pig, and she was pretty embarrassed about it. This was also when they realized that all of them were in the same grade and in the same school. And surprisingly, Akko's real name was also Akko. She also confessed to not having any school friends and was glad to have made at least 3 online friends. All of them tried to cheer her up, when the president also said that she, even after being the student council president, had no friends. They also began to discuss how Sagawa was the most normal among the 4 of them, and was being asked out by boys at school. But Sagawa refused to be involved romantically with any guy as it would be really bad for her gaming. But Rujin, on the other hand, still couldn't believe that Akko, his game wife, was really a pretty girl in real life. Now, Akko was familiar with their student council president, and Sagawa also knew that her father was one of the board of directors of the school. This meant that she was from a wealthy family. Her family was crazy rich and owned a few schools and companies. That was when it clicked Sagawa that, since the president was so rich, she was able to spend so much of her money playing online games. On the other hand, Akko was once again in a different state of mind as she was hateful of rich people. By this time, their food had also arrived and it looked absolutely delicious. Kyowa, their president, also told them how she also had to deal with her strict parents growing up and that she was discouraged from making friends growing up. Every activity that she did was monitored by her parents. The only friends she had were online friends, and not a single real-life friend. Akko tried to cheer up Kyowa. Next, all of them started to discuss game strategies and what would be the best move for their team. Sagawa argued that it was upgrading to a better weapon, while Nishimura argued that the overall level upgrade was more important in order to access better weapons. This turned into a serious argument when the master tried to interrupt by saying that buying the upgrades was the solution, but this didn't stop them. Now, Akko had the dumbest solution, which was to make purchases on her outfit, which was criticized by Nishimura. And all of them finally agreed that Akko, as their team healer, sucked at doing her job properly. And all of them laughed it off. And next it was time for all of them to head back home. The sun had now already begun to set, and all of them were about to leave for their homes when Nishimura apologized to all of them. Actually, he thought that all of his teammates were guys, since Sagawa and Kyowa cross-dressed as guys and Akko too would turn out to be a guy. He had expected these, which turned out to be not true. But surprisingly, none of them got angry at him for what he said. They understood his point of view about online gaming. People can't be trusted in online games, and it is also very hard to find genuine online players. He was glad that his online friends were great in real life too. Kyowa also confessed that she thought Rujin to be a guy who would lure girls in, which was also not true at all. But Sagawa pretended to have the same opinion about Nishimura as they were already classmates, and warned him to stay away from her at school. Now, Akko started to act a bit jealous towards Sagawa when she said that either way she was not interested in Rujin. Later, while walking back home, he confessed to Akko that, even though he thought she might be another cross-dressing old guy, it was okay for him because reality and online gaming are two different things and had no connection to each other. She was happy to hear that age, looks, gender didn't matter for Rujin. This made her really emotional and happy that he accepted her for who she was. Later, they headed back home. After reaching home, Nishimura once again logged into the game and started to play it. Now once again, he was having fun playing this game, but he was now aware of the fact that his teammates were females. Now the president logged out, followed by Akko, and next the rest too were left arguing for a bit. After a bit of chatting, both of them logged out. The next morning at school, Sagawa tried to greet Nishimura awkwardly at school, but soon was embarrassed by it and started shouting at him once again. Now as they were talking, suddenly Akko comes in front of Nishimura's class, referring to him as Rujin. He tried to pretend he didn't know her, but she kept on calling him by his game name and being clingy towards him. This caught the attention of his friends and the whole class. Sagawa was also alerted by Akko's presence. Rujin had now started getting different types of questions about his and Akko's relationship, and Akko wasn't helping the situation at all when she mentioned them being married. Now, Sagawa tried to interrupt their conversation and send them out of the class when Akko started referring to her as her game name. Sagawa started to panic, as her friends started to ask her about the strange girl too. Now, she dragged her out of the class and all three of them were discussing outside the class to make Akko understand that games and reality are completely different. Actually, Akko couldn't distinguish between a game and reality. Akko was unable to accept this information and started to have a mental breakdown, so for now the both of them decided to play along with her, but also decided to make her understand that it was okay to call them by the official names, Sagawa and Nishimura instead of Rujin and Swain. As they were having this conversation, Akko hugged Nishimura and suddenly, they were interrupted by their homeroom teacher who called them for homeroom. As they were heading back to class, Akko mentioned that she made lunch for Nishimura. That was when the both of them realized her problem was serious. Later at recess, they discussed with Kyowa about what to do in order to solve the problem. Actually, the reason she was so attached to Nishimura was that the last teammates she was with were quick to abandon her, but this was not the case with Nishimura and the others. This was the reason she fell in love with him. Rujin, after hearing everything, was determined to make her understand that the reality and game were two different things altogether. Akko was terrified, but the three of them were determined to make this happen, and for this, Kyowa also had a plan to make their goal come true. Actually, the plan was to enroll them in a gaming club, which would be to help Akko distinguish reality in game, when she would see the players inside the game were also present beside her playing the game. Her reality would be clearer. Nishimura and Sagawa were hesitant at first, but after a bit of persuasion, both of them agreed to be part of this club. Even after this, Akko kept insisting that nothing would change for her. Next, after reaching home, as Rujin logs into the game, he is greeted by Nekoheim. Rujin was a bit startled to see her at first, but felt a bit happy. Nekoheim, who was actually a guy, apparently, had the perfect image of a cutesy girl who meowed in between every sentence. Actually, it was after a long time that the both of them were meeting each other, and Nekoheim didn't think that he was still playing this game. Nekoheim also informed him that although her job had gotten a bit busy, she logged in because someone had mentioned this game to her. The next morning at school, once again, Akko was clinging to Nishimura, and although this was awkward for him, it made him have some butterflies as well. And while she was being affectionate with him, their homeroom teacher came in and she had to leave. Their teacher noticed this and called Nishimura outside for a bit. Outside, she asked if the both of them were dating, to which Nishimura denied and said that they were close friends. Their teacher was a kind lady and had noticed that Akko was skipping school a lot, and only recently had she been attending school, and that was also mostly because of Nishimura. Kyowa also came to join in on their conversation, as she had asked the teacher to be their games club mentor, which she declined politely. Later, all four of them had gathered to play games together. Akko was still typing, not realizing that all of her teammates were sitting right beside her, and she could just talk to them. Now, before they began, Rujin wanted to take a look at Akko's gear, and Sagawa joined in. They noticed that Akko only focused on appearance, and her gears and weapons were too weak to use on the quest that they were about to begin. All of them began to tease Akko, while the president was also having fun watching them argue. As they entered the volcano zone in the game, Kyowa was about to waste another premium item, and Sagawa stopped her, while Akko was still worried about her unattractive outfit. They were defeating the demons, and Sagawa was also playing smoothly with the help of this PC. As Kyowa died, Akko was figuring out how to revive her. Due to settings being a bit different on another PC, Nishimura helped her. After their round, all of them were exhausted, as playing like this was really intense and exhausting. Later, Akko and Nishimura were walking home together. When Akko was talking about how she was attending school every day, the both of them decided to make a stop at the convenience store for a drink. Nishimura was getting nervous around Akko, and said that the both of them should get going home, when Akko said that her parents were almost never home. Next day at school, all of them had once again gathered to play the games as usual, and were talking about Akko's improvement. When they started playing again, Sagawa had a very powerful outfit, and after their game was finally over, Rujin praised Akko for being better at her game day by day. That was when they realized that their original goal, which was to make Akko realize the difference between reality and games, wasn't being achieved at all. Instead, it was the other way around. That was when the master announced that their club had a time limit, after which the club would be officially banned, because of them not having an official advisor. So, they somehow had to achieve their goals within this time. On the other hand, in the game, Rujin finds Nekoheim once again and decides to ask her for some advice regarding Akko's situation. Now, with Nekoheim's advice, the next day, Nishimura decided to be a bit strict with Akko and make her understand the difference between the real world and the gaming world. Upon hearing this, Akko was sure that someone had told him something because it was out of character for Nishimura. She quickly came to the conclusion that it was actually a woman who had talked to her man, which made her furious. Nishimura, too, was scared due to this behavior. The time when Rujin was meeting up with Nekoheim, Akko caught him red-handed, thus making her suspicions come true. That was when Rujin let her know that Nekoheim was the crossdresser, to whom he had confessed his love to. This was also a shocking revelation for Akko, which made her insecure as well. But after a while, Rujin tried to calm her down, but she left the place. The next day, their homeroom teacher asked Nishimura why Akko wasn't at school. Later, when they logged in to play the game, Akko had come to the gathering hall. Actually, she had some business to take care of. She had an offline meeting with another player. She also revealed that the person she was meeting up with was someone she met in lab and was also a man. This was too strange and dangerous, as the man was totally unknown to them. Akko finally looked like she was able to accept the fact that reality and online gaming were two separate worlds. But she looked really sad at the same time. Not just that, Rujin also didn't make any effort to stop her, as he was feeling pretty annoyed. Later, as school was over, Rujin was still pissed, and that was when he realized that he actually had feelings for the real-life Akko. Both of his teammates came rushing to him to let him know that they had managed to find out when and where she was meeting up with this strange man. It was important to intervene, as she could be in a lot of trouble. After a bit of persuasion, Rujin finally left to meet up with Akko, as he had realized his true feelings for the girl. He hurried off to the meeting spot and finally got to see Akko. who was waiting for the mystery man. Rujin also said how he wouldn't approve her to meet with any strange man, being her husband. That was when he came across their homeroom teacher, Sato, who actually happened to be Nekoheim. Nekoheim was no man. Nishimura was confused and embarrassed with the whole situation when he realized that he had actually proposed to his teacher. On the other hand, Akko was furious and brought out a weapon to attack her. Sato then had to take her down, unfortunately. The whole scene was so funny. The next day, Sato was threatened to be the advisor of their net gaming club by the master, which now meant that the game club wasn't getting banned. Sato advised all of them to come to school every day, and the episode ends with Akko inviting Nishimura to meet her parents. Now, Rujin was sharing a playback from his memories, when he was heartbroken from the rejection and revelation and was playing solo. He had tried to join a super intense guild and went to get interviewed by the guild master. The guild master had a lot of questions to ask him, and he was kind of startled and perplexed in the beginning. He wasn't used to getting interviewed in order to join a group. After a while, he realized that the group was actually way out of his league and had members who were way stronger and had reincarnated 3 to 4 times, while he hadn't done it a single time. It was also necessary for him to drop out of high school to pursue his gaming career full-time. To be in the guild, as everyone in the guild had gaming as their #1 priority. It was not a good place for him to fit in, so he decided to leave the place, but the guild master also reassured him that he could always come back asking for help. Hearing all this, Akko was pretty impressed. That was when Akko realized she had actually forgotten her wallet at home. Later, when all of them had gathered at the game room, their teacher said that the whole point was getting Akko out of the delusion, but things were only getting worse. Later, she left for a meeting. Their master was pumped up for the match because she had spent a lot of money buying 100 mystery boxes, which she was going to reveal to all of them. These mystery boxes had cost her a lot of money. She was really excited to even share these items with her fellow teammates after revealing them. Later, while Akko and Nishimura were walking back home, they realized that Akko had forgotten to bring her wallet, so Nishimura treated her to an ice cream. The next morning, Nishimura had gone to school, and all his friends were teasing him about his girlfriend, Akko. Akko was, once again, standing there stalking Nishimura. Later, at the club room, Akko explained to her team how she was facing a lot of problems in her class as her classmates were constantly asking her about Nishimura, which made her feel really uncomfortable and nervous. Actually, she wasn't comfortable talking to normies. But on the other hand, Kaiwu expressed that even though she didn't have a problem talking to normies, no one would actually talk to her. All of a sudden, Nanako, who was Sagawa's friend, appeared, and this was really embarrassing for Sagawa. Nanako knew her secret club, and now her high school career was about to be over. When they reached home, Nishimura and Akko were waiting for the rest of them to show up. It was boring for them, so Akko suggested they do something fun with the time alone. They flew on an octopus air balloon, and then jumped into the beautiful ocean. The underwater experience was too memorable for both of them. They saw beautiful marine animals all around, and also they had been swallowed by a whale, who pushed them out of its back. After that, they watched the sunset from a beautiful castle. Everything was like a beautiful dream, which both of them later considered to be a date. While this was happening, Akko started to remember the first time they had met. Although it was something like Akko not knowing how to operate in the game, she imagined it as Rujin saving her like a charming prince. After this incident, Akko stuck around him and decided to follow him wherever he went. This was when Akko fell in love with Rujin. Next, the both of them walked into an inn, where they saw 2 people sitting across each other in a bed. Akko suggested they do what real couples do in the real world. This idea flustered Rujin, and they both then headed out to a grave-like area. Here both of them were greater than Nekoheim. While they were having a conversation, a whole crew of scary players came towards them, thinking they were harming Nekoheim. All of them were protecting Nekoheim. Then, somehow, both of them managed to escape from the place into a forest. Now as they were walking, they came across a character who was getting attacked by monsters. Rujin saved her, and this character was impressed by it. This character was a beginner, and Rujin began to help her understand the basics of the game. Now, Akko was getting really jealous and insecure about this random player, who Rujin didn't even know. The next day, Sagawa was excited as usual, the reason being that her friend promised to keep her playing games a secret. While they were playing this game, once again the beginner player, Set, found Rujin and came very close to him. This made Akko very uncomfortable. Now all of his teammates were confused to see this random female come up to Rujin and clingy along to him. He explained that she was just a new beginner that he met the other day. When Schwain offered to help her, she chuckled a bit and said that she preferred Rujin over her. This made Akko really uncomfortable. The next time they were in the game room, Akko suggested they play something more exhilarating. So the president suggested they play Ultra Force. Surprisingly, Akko was really good with this game, although this was her first time playing this type of an intense game. All of them were struggling a bit, but Akko was playing like a true pro. Akko was so excited. She thought this was the type of game that was truly made for her. The next day, Rujin had dark circles and was tired from not sleeping the whole night. He was up playing Ultra Force the whole night. Akko, once again, was caught stalking Rujin outside his classroom. Suddenly, Akiyama, who was Sagawa's friend, walked in asking where they were on the last day, as they were not at their usual meeting spot. After this conversation, it was clear that she was actually the mystery beginner who was acting close to Rujin. This was also another shocker for Sagawa, who for sure thought that her high school days were over. Akiyama once again became very clingy to Nishimura, praising him for being kind towards her. This also pissed off Akko, who then ran out of the class crying. After she ran away, all of them then explained the situation to Akiyama. She clarified that she didn't think it was a big deal, as they were a couple only in the game, but wasn't interested in Nishimura at all. All of them tried to figure out different ways on how to approach Akko and make her comfortable. All of them decided to give her some space first, but this turned out to be a bad idea as Akko stopped answering all of their calls and texts. Now her teammates were worried sick for her well-being. Rujin assured them that he would talk to Akko. He knew where Akko would be, and later logged in to find Akko at the exact same position where he predicted her to be. Akko was wandering around all alone in the forest. Rujin found her and called out to her. Akko explained that everything was too hard for her, distinguishing between reality and games. So, she had decided to disappear from everyone's life by reincarnating in the game, so the both of them wouldn't have to remain married anymore. This was a very shocking revelation to Rujin. She also added that she was going to quit school in order to begin her brand new journey. Akko then suddenly disappeared and logged off from her chat. This made all of them worried once again, but all of them decided to not give up, as Akko had made a lot of progress when it came to controlling her emotions. The last time something similar happened, she headed off to attack Sato, her teacher, but this time instead of attacking Nanako, she had completely shut herself down. She was coping up in her own special way, so Rujin now decided to handle everything on his own. Later, Nishimura and Sagawa were walking back home, when Sagawa also confessed that she too had a lot of fun due to Rujin and her feelings were the same as Akko. After she accidentally confessed, she tried to cover it up by making different excuses in front of him. The next day, Rujin skips school and shows up to Akko's house. As he was gathering courage to enter, he met with Akko's mother, who instantly recognized him. She knew all about Akko and her game husband. She welcomed him inside, gave him a key to her room, and then proceeded to leave for work. Nishimura then walked up to Akko's room. Akko was really perplexed and panicked a lot when Nishimura decided to come in. He was shocked and also embarrassed to see Akko standing only in her underwear. He quickly shut the door, and within a few seconds, once again, Akko called him to get inside. This time, Akko was completely unclothed. Actually, he had the wrong impression of Nishimura's intentions. After she got clothed, Nishimura finally entered her room. It was a hilarious moment for the both of them. Now, Akko's room was quite pretty and even had a fridge for her to store supplies when she didn't feel like leaving her room at all. Akko then played a small prank on Rujin. Akko initially thought that he was there to bring her back to school with him, but he said that he was there just to have fun with her for the day. Both of them began playing and Rujin taught her a lot of new tricks and taught her how to play the game properly. The sun was almost about to set when they finally finished playing the game. It was almost club meeting time. Shu and Master had already logged in. So, Rujin too logged in on a separate PC near her using her cables. Now as they entered the club meeting, Nekoheim was also present there. That was when Rujin dropped the bomb on them that he too was quitting school. Nekoheim and the others couldn't do anything about it, but Akko was really concerned about him. He had taken this decision only because Akko was quitting school. Quitting school was a tough decision for him as well. Now, Rujin lectured her about her importance in their lives, and also understood her point of view as well. Akko too, surprisingly, understood everything that was told to her. Although real life was tough, she too decided to give it another shot. If it didn't work out, then the both of them would drop out of school and slack off to have fun every day. Now, Rujin was reminiscing about the time when his proposal to Nekoheim was rejected and he was heartbroken. He and his online friend were both frustrated as the similar situation the both of them were in. His friend had discovered that his game wife had married another man from a different character. He considered it to be cheating and was devastated. He had fallen in love with this girl, and now he was not sure if his marriage was going to work out anymore or not. Now he decided to attack on Rujin's weak point, and now he next decides to never get married again. It was exhausting for him to have his heart broken. This was both of their resolutions, to never get married again or fall in love. But since then, Yuan had married and divorced two cosplaying characters, which now made his third marriage. When Rujin had finished telling this story to Akko, she assured him that she would never divorce him as she loved him truly. Rujin became flustered and about to give out his true feelings towards her. Next, Rujin quickly logged out. The next day, at school, while Sato was taking their class, she mistakenly called Nishimura Rujin in front of the whole class, which was a bit embarrassing for all of them who played the game. Later, all the girls were suggesting Akko on how to look after herself, how to do her makeup, her skincare, which overwhelmed her, and she hugged Nishimura once again. Later, Sagawa explained that these were pretty common among high school girls, and to experience the proper life of a high school girl, it was necessary for her to take part in all of the self-grooming. Later, when Kyo entered, she found all of their conversations to be really funny and entertaining to her. After that, Sagawa suggested that Akiyama was also eagerly waiting to go on a quest with all of them. Hearing this, Akko sulked a bit, but they had to play together anyway. Now, all of them were playing in an icy forest defeating fierce wolves. They were doing this quest only for Set, who was still a beginner. Now, Set had activated a new mode, where she could summon a pet. Her whole getup changed completely, and she was now a pink-haired character with a cute dog pet. She was quick to decide which pet she was going to summon. Later, while they were chatting in the common area, Akiyama mentioned that they soon had their final exams, and this had completely slipped out of the minds of most of them. So, the game room was out of limits until their exams, but they were free to log in from their homes while taking a break. While they were walking back home, they were talking about the games and also their summer vacation, but as soon as the topic of tests came up, Akko started to act funny. This was because Akko actually wasn't a very bright student and had also failed in her last semester exams. And on top of that, her preparation for these exams were also zero. This shocked Nishimura. Akko explains that since her dream is to become a housewife, it was really not necessary for her to study at all. When Nishimura reached home, he got an idea from his sister, who asked for tuition from him. He decides to help out Akko score good marks in her exams. Now when they entered the game, he shared this idea with the rest of his teammates, who agreed to the idea and also decided to support him. Not just that, they also dragged her to a different room in the inn, where she was being asked history questions by Rujin. She didn't enjoy this at all, but this was necessary so that she could pass. Akko hated math even more, but couldn't escape due to the barrier by the master. Now, Nekoheim, their teacher, also tried to teach her Japanese history. Now, it was finally time for their test to begin. All of them looked pretty confident, but Akko looked really nervous. Finally, after long days of struggle, their exams were finally over, and Akko had also passed her exams. This was all thanks to everyone's efforts. After that, Akko finally went off to sleep, and Nekoheim went off to check everyone's papers. As the others were about to leave, Rujin stopped them to ask for some advice. He was being really shy, but finally started to talk. He confessed that he loved Akko and wanted to ask her out. He wanted to do it before summer vacation to make some memories over summer. Both his friends gave really boring and uninteresting answers. This was mostly because the both of them had no prior love experience. Rujin decided to propose her and do it face to face. The master also assured him that there were huge chances that he would not get rejected by Akko, since Akko loved him too. Now finally, the last day of school before summer vacation is here. Akko came to call Nishimura to the club room, when she was complimented by his friends, to whom she replied very rudely. Later, when they went to the club room, Kyo announced that they would be having a club activity this weekend. It was basically an outdoor camp, which required all of them to be really active, and this would also be accompanied by Sato. After this was over, as usual, Akko and Nishimura were walking home. This was finally the perfect time for Nishimura to confess his love to Akko. Nishimura then asked her to go to the park for a bit. As he started to open the chits that were given by Sagawa and Kyo, he was disappointed, but somehow he managed to ask her out to be his girlfriend. To his surprise, she rejected his proposal. Later, Nishimura was crying in the restaurant. When Sagawa and Kyo were also present, they asked what happened. When Nishimura told them, Akko had rejected his proposal. It was now time for their weekend camp. The time had finally arrived. Nishimura was quite tired, because he didn't get enough sleep last night due to him playing online games. Nishimura could not even stand straight, but their teacher was active. This was because she used to be part of a wrestling club, so waking up in the morning was no big deal for her. In the meantime, Akko and Sagawa also arrived. Akko, too, was really tired, and so was Sagawa. Kyo explained that the purpose of this camp would be to boost their physical strength to have more stamina to play online games. This camp also has other rules like no internet connectivity for 24 hours. This was too tough for Akko to obey. The purpose of this camp was once again to make Akko realize that online gaming had a totally different world than reality. Since she had a hard time dealing with reality, it was also very hard for them to convince her that reality wasn't that tough to deal with. Having a good experience would enable her to enjoy her life and the vacation as a normal high school girl. By doing this, Rujin could once again confess to her in a normal way, so that she could understand the difference between the real and online world relationships. After they finally arrived at the destination, It was a private beach which was owned by Kyo's family. The cottage was more like a hotel, and it was the perfect resort for all of them. They were really excited to spend their time on the beach and in the private cottage having fun. Now once they had settled in their rooms, it was time for them to have fun at the beach. Nishimura was already waiting for them at the beach when Ako came running towards him in her cute swimsuit. This swimsuit looked really pretty on her, and this made Nishimura blush a lot. Ako sat beside him to give him some company. Not after long, Sagawa and Kyo also came out looking really pretty in their swimsuits. Ako had forgotten to put on sunscreen, so Sagawa put on sunscreen on Ako's pale skin. Now it was Nishimura's turn. He also didn't put on any sunblock, so all of them now began putting on sunscreen on him. It was a very hilarious moment for all of them. Now their teacher had also come outside, who was basking in the sun, and the rest of them were in the ocean swimming and relaxing. Kyo was swimming very fast and enjoying herself a lot. After a while, all of them were coming out of the ocean to head back to the cottage. It was only midday, so their advisor asked them to actually play around in the sand. It was so uncommon for them, as they were mostly involved in online gaming. After a while of persuasion, they finally gave in and started to actually enjoy their time. They played volleyball, sandman, and the watermelon game. All of this exhausted them, and Nishimura was in the hot bath soaking himself. All of a sudden, Ako barged into him and saw him completely naked. Sagawa took her away, while Nishimura was still recovering from the shock of what happened. After their bath, a huge barbecue dinner was set up for all of them to enjoy. But unfortunately, all the materials were raw. So, Ako stepped in and made them a huge barbecue fest. All of them enjoyed their dinner. Later, Ako and Nishimura were sitting on the porch, looking around at Sato and Sagawa and having fun. Kyo was also observing them, and thought this was the perfect time to execute their plan. She set up a lot of fireworks, and it was honestly beautiful to watch. The night sky was full of colors. Ako was so happy to spend such a day that she almost cried. After gathering up his courage, Nishimura once again confessed his love to Ako. Ako this time replied that she loved him too, but once again, she also implied that they were married. This meant that their plan had once again failed. Even though they were off the internet the whole day, Ako was still not able to differentiate between reality and the online world. As they were discussing, their teacher now barged in saying that it was time for all of them to sleep. The next morning, Kyo had a more amazing plan for them. They headed out to the famous Hotel Flores. This was a massive hotel, which had a tie-up with Legendary Age, the game that they were playing. Sato had now checked them in, so now they were ready to take part in this grand event about to take place. All of them went into the computers and were logging in. Ako tried to look into Nishimura's password, which caused him to enter a wrong password for the first time, but later logged in. As they entered the game, they were instructed to go to the restaurant in the first floor. After going there, they ordered items that they wanted for the game and proceeded towards the gift shop with their token. After receiving their items, Rujin suggested for now all of them checked into their rooms. Their rooms also had internet connection to log into the game. As they logged in, Ako invited him to her room and laughed. As they were alone in the room, Ako suggested they have some private couples chat since it was the perfect place and time. Now the both of them were all alone in a room, off course in the game, and both of them were sitting awkwardly from each other. Suddenly, Rujin was logged out of his game. He figured it was a normal glitch, and also in the meantime, he dropped his drink too. After returning back to his PC, he tried to log in multiple times, but his password would not enter. This could only mean one thing, that Rujin had now being hacked. He was panicking and rushed towards Ako's room. Ako opened up and was almost about to cry, and hugged him when she saw him. He figured what might have gone wrong with Ako, who was still very shocked with the encounter with the stranger. Rujin then proceeded to take a look at the chats of the stranger. He was utterly disgusted with how the imposter had behaved with Ako. The imposter basically harassed her, but it was not long before that Ako realized the truth about the imposter. Through his chats, he knew that the imposter could never be Rujin. The imposter had harassed her, and she was a victim to all this. Ako, on the other hand, was truly sorry for referring to the imposter as Rujin. Rujin comforted her and called his friends to inform them the situation. All of them came and were scared about the situation. Kyo was also sorry, as she felt responsible for bringing them to the event. Nishimura assured them that it was in no way their fault, as Nishimura had already reported it to the hotel staff and had gotten his account back. Actually, while he was logging into the lobby computer, his password was hacked. His character was completely deleted and all his items were also transferred to the hacker. This made Ako really sad, but Rujin once again comforted her that he was still real and he could always make a new character. He was determined to take all his wealth back, if not all, then most of it at least. All of them then headed back to their rooms to look for the lost items on their PCs. Meanwhile, Ruzhin also decided to take help of his old friend, who was a pro, to look for his items. Now, this friend was the old guild master, to whom once Ruzhin approached to join his guild. He logged in using a sub-character that he had created a long time ago. The guild master assured to help him. Not just that, Nekoheim's elite army also assured to help him. He found some of his wealth at a market, and this wealth was sold by a player named Lon Tan. There were super high chances that this was the player who had hacked him. The master offered to buy all of his wealth back, so she would feel less guilty. After that, he got a mail from Nekoheim's elite guards that they had found his ring after slaying a monster. A ring was probably useless, so the hacker must have thrown it away. Akko was really sad that her ring was thrown away, but on the brighter side, they also got back the ring. This was not less than a miracle, and the both of them believed that it was possible only because of their intense love towards each other. During the summer vacation, Ruzhin had to come to school to report his loss to the official club records, and he was also accompanied by their club president. He later explained he was really pissed off by the fact that the poser had tried to talk to Akko pretending to be Ruzhin. Even if it was for a few seconds, the thought of Akko belonging to someone else other than him truly pissed him off. But on the other hand, their bond was so strong that Akko had immediately identified Ruzhin wasn't the one who was talking to her. Later, while they logged into the game, they discovered that the admins weren't doing much for them. It was frustrating. Then suddenly, Black Magician, Ruzhin's friend, entered the chat and informed them about the Lon hacker, who was a famous hacker and had also joked in his blog about hacking Ruzhin's account and deleting it. Finally, there was some update on this person. This hacker was also involved in RMT. Suddenly, a plan popped up in Nishimura's mind. All of his friends worked sleepless nights to make this plan work out. As he was working, his bell rang and it kept on ringing. On opening the door, he saw Akko standing in a very cute pink dress. Due to his reflexes, he closed the door on her face. Later, when she came in, Ruzhin explained that they were no longer husband-wife since his character was deleted. She finally understood that their marriage was null now, and now the both of them were only friends. But she had made a cute bento box for Ruzhin, which Ruzhin was happy to have since he was working so hard on making his plan successful. Next, a glimpse of the hacker is shown. He is a typical nerd in front of his computer screen and is eating potato chips at the same time. He also comes across the RMT deals that was set up by Nishimura's team, which caught his attention. Now finally, it was time to execute the well-laid plan. All of them had gathered in the club room to make it happen. Lon had come up with a different character name. Now, as soon as they were about to engage in RMT, the game admin showed up suddenly. Finally, they were summoned to a different place, where Lon was exposed by him. Actually, he had created a fake site with years of data just to lure in this one person, and to make him pay for what he did. After all their efforts, they were finally rewarded. Ruzhin got his character revived, which was really an important character to him, and the other guy had to go through some severe punishment. Akko was the most excited. Now, Sagawa, Nanako, Akko, and Kyowu were standing in front of a huge mansion, which belonged to Kyowu and her family. This mansion looked really overwhelming to Akko, and she began panicking and being nervous. She was also missing her precious Ruzhin, but unfortunately, Ruzhin couldn't be present there as he was a boy, and boys weren't allowed in their sleepovers. Also, Akko was annoyed with Nanako also being present there with them. Sagawa encouraged her to become friends with Nanako, and Akko screamed out in frustration for her beloved Ruzhin. As they entered her home, they were greeted by her servants, who were finally happy to see their mistress make some friends. All of them proceeded to head up the stairs towards her room. While they were walking through the hallways, they discovered that the maids weren't actually maids there, it was all just a cosplay. When they finally entered her room, it was 10 times bigger than Sagawa's room. Not just that, she also had a different computer space with the most advanced technologies. Sagawa was starting to get annoyed when Nanako suggested that they start doing their homework, which was the actual goal of this sleepover. After a while, it became unbearable for Akko, as she absolutely hated studying. She excused herself for a bathroom break, and Nanako also wanted to go to the bathroom with her. The others agreed that it was a better option for Akko to take someone with her to the bathroom, as they couldn't trust her at all. After the both of them went to the bathroom, Akko decided to look around the house for a bit and explore the area. Nanako had to follow her around. Now the both of them had decided to look around into the house, and this was all like a map in a game. After wandering for a while, they came across a secret room, and to their surprise, after pressing a book inside, a secret door revealed a huge treasure in front of them. But to their surprise, the treasure was just an album which apparently recorded embarrassing photos of Kyowu growing up. Now her maid had already found them snooping around, but they were so afraid that they ran away. Meanwhile, Shuane was missing Nishimura due to his smart responses to Akko. That was when the both of them heard Akko and Nanako screaming around the hallway. The maid was still following them around, and this caused them to hide inside the table. Next, the both of them were calling out for their master to save them from the garden as they could not find the room they were studying in. Later, while studying in the garden, Nanako was informed that Nekoheim was their homeroom teacher, Sato. Ako was also really jealous of her due to Rujin. But as they were talking, they then realized that Ako hadn't even started her homework, so all of them forced her to complete her work before starting anything else. After a long day, it was now time for dinner. Their home chef had prepared a special dinner for them, and meanwhile, Ako decided to play a small prank on Sagawa with the wash bowls. After their dinner was over, it was now time for them to have a bath. The bathhouse was also very large for a private bathhouse. It was so large that it could easily fit a large group of people easily in it. Ako, at first, was a bit shy to enter the bath, but then eventually did. They had a lot of different conversations, which was mostly about Nishimura, but they enjoyed themselves a lot. Swain was getting a bit jealous from all of them. All of them were having a good time together, washing each other's backs, when suddenly the topic of Nishimura came up and what body type he preferred. Ako wanted to call him and show him which body type he actually preferred, so all the girls were running behind her in order to stop her from the disaster. Thankfully, Rujin didn't pick up, and Nanako cut the call just on time. Finally, it was time for all of them to go to sleep. They were lying in a master bedroom, and the bed was so big that it accommodated all of them easily. While they were about to sleep, Kaiwu thanked them for showing up, as they were the first guests she had ever had. Ako also said that it was her first time being invited to a sleepover. All of them assured her that it was okay, as all of them were very good friends now. Then, Nanako asked Ako a very scary question, which was that what was exactly Ako and Nishimura's relationship in real life. Ako, after thinking for a while, answered it with a very tough situation, which was tough to counter. Now, all of them had begun to panic, and they started to remember Nishimura, and also wonder how he deals with Ako all the time. All of them logged in through Kaiou's character in La and started talking to Russian, which made him really confused. Once again, Rujin was narrating another story from La to his wife or girlfriend, Ako, about another healer that he was acquainted with before. Actually, this healer had the burden to heal more than 12-15 people in a guild, which was definitely a tough task. The first time this happened, he didn't speak up, and in result, all of them died. After this, the healer was really guilty about everything. The next time, when the healer once again had the burden to heal a huge party, Rujin spoke up for her. Actually, the healer had a hard time asking for help. This matter was interpreted by Ako as Rujin bragging about his old girlfriend, when all Rujin wanted from her was to not tell others that they were married, but just in a regular relationship when their school reopens after summer vacation. This idea was totally discarded by Ako. After their school reopened, it was summer and the heat was too much to bear. Even Nishimura was having a hard time dealing with it, and one of his friends had a tan from the vacation. Next, Sagawa came to Nishimura and dragged him towards the staircase to discuss about how it was too difficult for her to get back to being a normal school girl. Now, Nanako greeted them and asked if they were having an affair, to which both of them were a bit annoyed. And then they realized that Ako hadn't shown up yet. Soon after that, Ako called, and apparently she had forgotten that the school reopens that day. The morning assembly also began, during which Ako entered. But Rujin was impressed that even though she was late, she still decided to show up to school. Now, all of them had assembled at the club room once again to play their game. As they were about to start the game, Sato-sensei came in to remind them about the school's cultural function. All of them had completely forgotten about this function and didn't even show much interest towards this. But even though they didn't want to participate, they had to put out something as a display in order to represent their club. They had only one significant achievement, which was bringing Ako to school regularly, but that was not an option at all. Now, the president proposed an idea to put on display. She suggested they put out the Siege Warfare Victor as their results in the cultural festival. This was actually a weekly guild versus guild warfare, where the guilds fought each other to win. They were deciding to fight here as a team, and once they won, they would show off their guild's emblem over the castle to the whole school. But they didn't even have an official emblem, so the master once again suggested that they put out their school emblem on their crest and win the battle. They would then take a photo in front of the castle and put it on display. While walking back home, Nishimura and Ako were talking about the cultural festival. Ako wasn't too fond of the player versus player matches, as she knew she was going to lose, but on the other hand, Nishimura was happy about it. Ako was happy to join, as long as Nishimura was present, and she spends her time with Nishimura. She also informed him that her class was setting up a food stall. The next day, they decided to have some PvP practice, with Ako versus Rujin. Both of them were too soft on each other to actually practice the PvP. It was annoying for Sagawa to watch, as neither one could attack each other, and Ako was too fragile for it anyway. Shu now decided to attack Rujin instead. and Rujin somehow tackled her, and his power was now boosted by their healer, Akko. This created a deadly attack combo, which inflicted a lot of damage on Shu. After drinking her healing potion, it was time for the Master versus Shu. After a bit of fighting, Shu won as the tricks and fighting style of the Master was too obvious and predictable. She was then resurrected by Akko. Next, when the Master fought Rujin, she once again lost, although her powers being way higher than Rujin. Once again, she was resurrected by Akko. Now, the final match was between the Master and Akko. Once again, with a simple attack, Master lost. She was really depressed by this, the main reason being she was stronger than them in stats. Shu was the most powerful PvP player among all of them. Now, all of them were really concerned, as logically, all of them were not suited to play Siege War at all due to them being a fairly weaker team. But they had no other option as the cultural festival was here already, and they had no time to prepare for another display. This was their only option, where they decided to give their best. The time finally came, when they were getting ready for a PvP battle. They saw that the castle was already under control of another guild. This guild was pretty strong, and was attacked by another guild, who despite being large in numbers, were wiped off brutally. Seeing this, Akko suggested they run away, but this was not an option for the Master, as she was the one who suggested it, and was determined to at least try, no matter what. As they charged forward, within fraction of seconds they were defeated. They decided to charge once again, and were defeated once again. This PvP didn't have any death penalties, so they were free to try as many times as they could. There was no way to win this game. Even after many tries, they remained unsuccessful. While this discussion was going on, they saw Nekoheim's guild fight off the castle and claimed it pretty easily. The next day, all of them were busy in preparations of the upcoming festival, but there was one problem. Tamaki Akko was chosen to be the head maid waitress at their class cafe. This was too stressful for her, but somehow she had to pull off all these responsibilities. The next day, all of them had gathered to the club once again to play the game. Today, they had a meeting with another group of players who were pretty hardcore and had maxed out weapons for PvP fights. All of them greeted each other, and now it was time for them to discuss everything. These players were supposed to help them in the PvP as a team, but they decided not to form an alliance in front of the fort, but somewhere else. Thus, Guild Alley Cats and Wallenstein had formed an official alliance. All of them started to discuss their strategies, and as usual, Akko had no clue about what she was being instructed to do, so she was only instructed to take care of the healing of her team. Now, Nanako had also joined in on their team. Nanako and Sagawa both had formed the same opinion about these strangers. They thought of these guys as cocky jerks and didn't like their attitude at all. Rujin tried to calm them down, and the leader instructed Master to follow them around. They were confident about winning the guild fight and conquering Fort Cantor. Now, the other team's leader asked Set and Akko to run around the fort as decoys. This was scary for the both of them, as they ran in opposite directions. The enemy also had their attention and started to attack them and reveal their numbers to the opposite team. This was indeed a clever strategy, but wasn't a morally correct way to win. Rujin agreed to their smart tactics, and so did Kyowo, but she wasn't pleased with this strategy at all. This was the chance, and all the other fighter players began charging forward. And Schwain was too frustrated, so she decided to take out her anger on the enemy instead. Schwain and Rujin had now started to attack the enemy head-on. The plan for them was to bring them close enough to the Master's magic range, since she was a mage. Both of them were defending against the enemy skillfully. As Rujin was tackling an enemy, the leader of Wallenstein came in and slayed the enemy as if he could predict his moves. All of them were surprised and impressed at the same time. The Wallenstein players charged in and asked all of them to stay behind them. Basically, Alley Cats were nothing but a tag-along in front of them. They proved that they were the best PvP team through their marvelous performance. Now as Akko and Set were running around, they finally reached inside the castle. They were shocked to find the throne was already defeated by the other team. The leader broke the crystal of the last team and asked them to place their own crystal, which they finally did. Now, they were in control of the guild. The leader was now heading out to the town for some supplies. After they had won the fight, technically, there was no sense of accomplishment. Everything was pretty boring and didn't seem worth it. Their teacher, too, didn't think this was the in which they would capture the guild, thus was disappointed. No one was actually happy about their victory. After the other team left the area, their alliance was officially broken. All that was left now was to take a screenshot. But now that the alliance was broken, it meant that the other team would be able to attack them. Soon the other team began to attack them and easily took them down. The leader now walked up towards the throne and cut off their crystal. They were disappointed with the betrayal, but after a few words, they left the spot disappointed, as they knew they were in no position to take him down. After this, Sato-sensei was really frustrated about their whole negative experience of being betrayed and not being able to do anything about it. As they were heading home, Nanako and Sagawa felt refreshing but disappointed, and Ako felt a lot of regret within her, which was actually a good thing. This was as if she had leveled up somehow. Rujin was happy that she had started taking accountability for her actions, rather than running away from them. He was actually proud of her. Now, they had only 1 week left before the cultural festival to win the Sage Warfare. The next day, Rujin was at the president's office when they were discussing about the gaming strategies. Kyowu insisted Rujin to call her by her actual name, as they were friends. This made her blush a bit, as no other male, other than her family, had ever called by her first name. Next, she assured him that they were going to use all the premium purchases she made for the sake of their win. When Rujin entered their club room, he was greeted by his teammates wearing a cute maid costume. Actually, these costumes were bought from Kyowu's place for the maid cafe. But apart from this, Ako was handling everything else terribly. Now, Rujin decided to take Ako to her class and let everyone know that actually, Ako wasn't able to figure out anything but the costumes. He requested everyone to help out, as there was only 1 week left. He then taught Ako to take help when necessary. The next time, in La, they asked for help from Nekoheim's elite guards, and surprisingly they agreed to help them. They didn't stop there. They also went ahead and asked help from the Black Magicians group as well. Now they also had an official alliance with the Alley Cats. All of them began to prepare themselves for the upcoming battle to seize the fort. Their practice impressed everyone, as Kyowu had leveled up quite a bit since the last time they played. Everyone at school was now busy in the preparation of the festival that was about to take place, and the Net Game Club had also gathered in their club room to display their victory to the whole school. This was their last chance to prove themselves, and their last chance to win a battle before the cultural school festival. Actually, Ako and Rujin had gone to have a conversation with the leader of Wallstein, where he said that defending was no fun. Rather, they believed in attacking and conquering the fort from those people who were desperately trying to defend the fort. All of them were a bit surprised by their move when Rujin and Ako started blaming each other. But now, the most important thing was to fight off against them, as they had to conquer the fort from these guys at any cost. They knew their chances of winning were slim, but they had to give it a shot. Now all of them had gathered up in order to attack the fort, including Nekoheim's elite guards. All of them were pretty fired up before entering the fight. Once again, as they were about to charge in, another group marched inside. This was the group that they had defeated the last time with the help of their alliance. Now, a large figurine was being operated by Set, which fired out its hand. This was important to break down the front wall, so all of them could charge in directly up front. They had a lot of defensive giants, but they were getting short on actual fighting men. These men were fighting, and all of them were doing a good job. Suddenly, Set shouted out that the Black Magician was on his way. This was obviously a bluff, which nobody believed, as they were a very influential team. As the enemy was busy laughing, Schwain saw an opportunity, rather an opening, and decided to attack them. She easily took all of them down with her sword. Now, all of them charged head-on towards the other soldiers, and were easily able to take them out. Their strategy was to first take out the weaker soldiers, and then take out the stronger ones. One soldier after the other kept falling. Finally, they were able to enter the fort and place their crystal after breaking the opponents. Now they had 20 minutes left to defend the fort. They had to hold out for 20 minutes. They did their best to defend their fort. This was when the attack power of Kyowu came into use. Her attack power was doubled by Ako's help. All of them were pretty satisfied, and finally, Kyowu was happy as well. Now, there was only 10 minutes left. After that came the real challenge, their actual opponents, Wallenstein. The 5 players marched confidently towards them and charged head-on. The master now commanded different groups to handle different duties. The opponents were too strong for them to handle. They were holding their ground and inflicting a lot of damage on their opponents. This was definitely a tough situation for all of them, as these 5 players were really strong. They were barely able to hold their ground against the 5 of them. The 5 of them easily defeated some guard forces and made their way inside. It was now time for the force led by Schwain to show their charisma and their skills. It was an intense situation for everyone. The enemy, as advancing, soon caught up to their plan and next targeted Schwain. Schwain still tried to give them a tough fight, as she had drank a lot of energy potions, but after a while, she was easily defeated. It was hopeless after all. The other team now charged forward after taking down Schwain. This was getting interesting, as now more troops had fallen down. But alley cats were not to be underestimated. Only 2 minutes were left. Then, Set distracted them for a moment and sacrificed herself, which gave the others an opening to attack them. Now, one by one, the members of the undefeated Wallenstein were falling down. By this time, already, 3 of their players had fallen down, thanks to the amazing skills of both the teams combined. But the 2 remaining players were really tough to beat. Only few members remained, as Nekoheim was also put down by these players. Master, Ako, and Rujin were the only ones left now. It was concerning. But only 1 minute was left and they both had to do their best to defend the fort. Master had a very brilliant strategy to tackle this situation. This strategy was too smart. Not even the mighty players were able to defeat them. Akko came in and sacrificed herself, which also delayed a bit of time. Finally, they had won, that too with their own hard work and struggles. All of them were really happy. Actually, Kyo had spent a lot of money to win this battle and she didn't regret spending tens of thousands of coins for this win. It was now time for the actual cultural festival. They had put up their victory on display. And not just that, everyone was having a lot of fun. He also went to visit Akko's stall, which was also pretty successful. Their teacher was performing a song for their students. It was a pretty successful event too. But at the end, everyone was happy, which made everything worth it. As they were packing up, Akko asked Nishimura